Yes, yes, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And I really wanted to sincerely appreciate Dr. Munmun Chakravarti and her team for organizing this very important workshop on advances in consciousness studies, Indian and cross-cultural perspective. It's very useful for not only for students, but also for everybody who is working in the area of consciousness. So I have requested her actually to come up with the proceedings of this workshop, because that will be really a great contribution in the area of consciousness. And today I will try to give some of our views. It is not actually anything, our views on neuroscientific understanding of consciousness. Um, Yeah, so here something little bit about our own center. We have established this center in the year 2020. 2019 we got the sanction, but 2020 we have established with a vision to be a global center of excellence in consciousness studies, and also to build a platform to carry out research in the domains of science, humanities, and culture pertaining to consciousness by integrating Indian philosophical wisdom with neuroscience. This is one of our greater mission in life, actually, because neuroscientists and philosophers, they talk or they consider the concept of consciousness is totally different. So we have to come, we have to have now studies, collaborative studies, to integrate these various perspectives on consciousness. So with that intention only, we have initiated this center, and we have initiated our studies. Definitely, initially, we will be initiating only studies to understand more about the neuroscience of consciousness. But during time, we try to understand the philosophical perspectives, and that definitely give us much more insight to do more about.
I think Madam is facing some internet connectivity issue.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. You could hear me, no? What I was talking?
Yeah, but meanwhile, you got disconnected, ma'am.
That is, I don't know why it is happening. So I was talking about this particular slide about our sender. So
Yeah.
now coming to, yes, coming to now the definition of consciousness. It is nothing but the qualitative aspects of our subjective awareness and experience. So deciphering consciousness from the perspective of neuroscience is really a challenge. Whereas if you look at the contributions in science from the perspective of philosophy, it is, India has contributed immensely in the area of consciousness and mind from the from philosophy point of view. Whereas neuroscience is still a challenge, because we we have to decipher how the brain activity is transformed to experience. That is still a challenge, because how a how a physical activity is translated into a non-physical entity like consciousness is still a challenge. So now, just to give you some assumption about our own understanding about the how we relate our neural activity with consciousness. This is just an example. So most of our earlier understanding on neuroscience of consciousness has come from studies from patients. For example, in this case of a patient with a stroke in one area of the brain, that is it's a posterior parietal area. This is the area. So here, this is an area which integrate all your sensory information. That is sensory information with regard to somatic sensation, visuals, all sensations and thought. So here, so when this is lesioned in one hemisphere, one area of the brain, that is on the right hemisphere of the brain, if that is lesioned, the patient experiences something called as hemispatial neglect. That is, the patient doesn't know the existence of the left side of its body, as well as left outside the external environment itself. So they live with only the right side, the right body, as well as right environment, right external world. So, for example, suppose if they are given a flower and asked to draw the flower, they only try to concentrate on the right side of their, brain, right side of their world, visual field. Even if they are asked to draw a clock, they will try to put all the these things, letters only on one side, because according to them, the left side is not existing, as this part, the right hemisphere, IPL is, internal parietal lobule is damaged. So you see that how they behave. So this is how we try to correlate the neural basis of consciousness actually. So this is one example, just for the students to understand how we study consciousness. And this is another example. You see this in the same, but here in this case, the patient is having a lesion on the left side. So when the patient is having a lesion on the left hemisphere of the brain, it is not able to accept or perceive or admire the existence of right hemifield, right visual hemifield. So here, and then when the patient is shown two identical figures of a house, but in one there is a fire in one of the window on the right side. Now, since the patient is not able to experience the right part of the visual field, definitely it will not come in its memory or its consciousness. The patient is only seeing the left aspect of the houses, both. But still, if you ask them a question that which one would you choose to live in, they point out the house A. So this is something intriguing, that this shows that the piece brain receives and processes visual information from whole field of the vision. It is not that only one aspect of the visual field. Whole visual field it is getting. Her brain knows the difference between the two images, but she remains unaware, unconscious of such information. So you see that somewhere that integration of information is lacking. So here, so that means brain is very important to integrate all the information, and this integration is very important for us to be conscious. Okay, so that is this. I just wanted to bring this up, these two examples for students to know that how the neuroscientists try to understand the importance of brain and the other neural substrates associated with the consciousness. So same thing, this is same thing again. I'm not going into the details. So here, so now, so what is the neural correlates of consciousness? We try to study, we try to correlate some neural mechanism associated or very important to generate a very specific conscious percept. So any conscious perception, generation of a perception depends upon or based on the neural mechanisms, various neural mechanisms, any neural mechanism. So a neural mechanism is very essential for us to have the conscious perception. So that is the theory, the neural correlate of consciousness emphasize on. Now, how do you, so that neural activity is there, how do you relate that neural activity with the level of consciousness? So this diagram try to tell that various levels of consciousness and the content of consciousness. So here the content of consciousness means that relate to the activity of the neural activity, and thus the awareness, the degree of awareness. So how the degree of awareness is correlated with the degree of your level of consciousness. For example, we know that we live in basically two different states, levels of consciousness. One is the waking conscious state and another is sleep. So during sleep, the consciousness, the level comes down, the content of consciousness also comes down. During waking conscious state, definitely the content is more as well as the level of consciousness is also more. So this is the general principle of a healthy human being. That is, conscious experience is high during waking state, and that you can also measure now using an imaging study. You can see the blood flow in various region, the activities of various region. Whereas here you see that when you are totally into, like when there is no consciousness, you see that there is the entire area is, totally inactive. So now we have other measures to also look into the brain activity and see that, relate that, okay, the content of consciousness is high during waking state, and the gradations you can see that during drowsiness, how the content is reduced and accordingly the level. Light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. REM sleep and lucid dreaming are something different. In lucid dreaming, as you all know, you can manipulate your dream. That means you are aware. When you are aware of dreaming, that is called as lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming, you can see that the content is more, even though the level of consciousness is less, because you are in a REM sleep state. Now, apart from this normal levels, you can also see some of the abnormal, during various lesion or during various state of coma. For example, in coma, usually where the content as well as the level of consciousness are nothing actually. General anesthesia reduces all these. Whereas there are certain state like vegetative state, or minimally conscious state, locked-in syndrome. These are all different states where the levels are also high and even the content also very high actually. But still, these are abnormal states because these are associated with lesion, stroke, or accidents, actually. So this is how the neuroscientists try to understand the content of consciousness, and that is can be related with the level of consciousness. Now, when we talk about the content of consciousness, what do you mean by that? So that means how the ability of the brain to integrate information. So the entire brain, so integrating information, and if you record EEG, we get this kind of very highly synchronized activity. Like nicely waveforms, you can see that high waveforms. So the content of information depends upon the high integration of the brain as well as high differentiation. So the information is there inside these waveforms. Now, how the ability of the waveform to differentiate this information is also very important. So when there is an enhanced, the content of consciousness is high, means there is high differentiation and high integration. And when the integration is affected in disease conditions or in various other anesthesia or this thing, definitely, accordingly, the consciousness also will be affected. So according to the state of state level, now people have come up with a kind of, a meter, SIP-SAP meter actually, that is perturbation complexity index, it is called as. I will just give you that. So, we have come up with, the neuroscientists have come up with a consciousness meter, that is the SAP and SIP technique. That is this perturbation complexity index is an objective measure of consciousness. And this measure is very nice. This like PCI has been used to monitor consciousness during general anesthesia and other regions. And you can see that this is this response is compressed to measure. Actually, I'm not going into the details of this, but the value of perturbation complexity, the value indicates the content of consciousness. So if the value of PCI is very high, that means you are having, you are in a, you are in conscious state and in higher states of consciousness. For example, wakefulness alone, you see the red dots. this area, this threshold is around 0.42. So when it comes down to 0.3 and all, you are into sleep state. This is in again normal condition, whereas there are different levels of consciousness that also can be studied using this PCI measures. And one of the advantage of this is that we can monitor the consciousness level in patients and to see that in which states, from these states, which patients can come up to the, or recover from the loss of consciousness to consciousness using this kind of perturbation complexity index. All depends upon the neural integration as well as differentiation. So now, neuroscientists are coming up with various measures to associate that with the consciousness. And definitely the consciousness depends upon the brain's ability to integrate information. So that means the brain processes this information in different ways. For example, here, this is the EEG. These are the power spectral, values, power spectral integration, so that the whole brain power spectrum you can study. These are the wave patterns usually we get during sleep. These are the cellular electrophysiology. If you record the, functions from the cell, a single cell, how it responds. So these are the waveforms associated with your event-related potentials. These are the cognitive potentials. So you see that brain process all various ways the information, but how this information is integrated is very important, and that depends on, so your perceptual binding, attentional modulation, and everything, with regard to consciousness depends upon the integration. And the studies have shown that meditation practices enhance the brain integration by enhancing the brain oscillations, and that definitely. So we have seen that, or studies have shown that the meditative practices help to enhance this capabilities, the integration capabilities of the brain. For example, here, so when we say that various integration, various synchronized oscillations within the brain, like thalamocortical oscillation, corticocortical synchronization, these are all happening in the brain. And so these kind of synchronized oscillation helps in increase the gamma activity. And this is, I'm talking about the meditation. So this so when we say that there is enhanced gamma activity following meditation, that means this enhanced gamma activity has the capability to synchronize massively distributed neurons to form a stronger network synchronization like this. So you see that, so as is shown here, in a meditative state, when the meditation practitioner is at rest and when he start meditating, you see that from this, due to this enhanced integration of information, he enters into a different level of consciousness. You see that the entire, because of the integration of the brain, it enhances he enters into a different level of consciousness because of the enhanced neural oscillations, oscillatory dynamics like gamma or alpha or theta dynamics. So usually meditation enhances these dynamics and helps in integration. So I just wanted to bring into your notice about the studies, what we are doing. See, these are the EEG waves. As you can see, these are the EEG waves from a novice meditator, from Vipassana novice meditator, Vipassana meditator. Vipassana meditation is an ancient, one of the ancient Buddhist meditative practices. Whereas you see these are the seniors and teachers who are having more than 10,000 hours of practice, more than 10 years of practice. You see their brain waves are highly synchronized. And highly synchronized, we have already informed that this synchronized brain pattern is an indication of integration, highly integration. And we have used almost 128 channel, and we have seen that highly synchronized wave pattern throughout. That means this brain regions are highly integrated. And what that means? That means that when the whole brain is integrated, you are very happy. And that has been already studied. So that shows that even these oscillations connect the different brain regions across areas, and thus this kind of this is particularly from an area of the brain in the frontal region, This is from the anterior cingulate gyrus. And this anterior cingulate gyrus give rise to a kind of oscillation. We call it as FM theta. FM theta is fronto midline theta. Theta activity that is originated from the frontal region of the brain. And when there is enhanced activity of the FM theta, that, that is an indication of focused internal attention and blissful experience. So you see that how experience itself, change the brain properties, change the brain connectivity, and how that lead to a different states of consciousness. So as I have been mentioning, that integration and differentiation is very, very important, and that alter the entire property of the brain and the entire, so when you are meditating, what we have observed is we are entering in a different state of consciousness that I will just explain in the next slide. So what we have observed in this, when we have decoded these wave patterns, we have obtained the various wave patterns of different frequencies like theta alpha, theta, delta, all these. So theta alpha, what we have seen only in the teachers and the senior meditators having more than 10 years of experience. So when they are in the resting state, that is, they are not meditating, they are only resting, they are just eyes closed rest state. This is an indication of sustained attention and awareness, positive emotion, feeling of happiness, enhanced self-regulation, decreased. So you see that this meditation itself reorganizes the brain connectivity in such a way that it enhances emotional regulation and self-regulation. And also positive emotion, enhanced positive emotion, sustained attention and awareness. So, so we have seen that there is an existence of theta alpha during. So this is a trait effect. That is, when you are doing meditation for a long years of time and with the proficiency, with increase in proficiency, you are undergoing various advanced retreats. Your brain is totally transforming. And we can see this kind of theta alpha during rest itself, not even during meditation state. Whereas during when they start doing meditation, we have observed enhanced alpha. This is an indication of sustained attention, and a kind of, it's a kind of sensory blocking. That is, it allows only the meditator to go on into an internalized attentive process, that is during meditation, and it prevents the sensory information processing of all other sensations. So, you cannot distract, they can ignore any kind of distractors while they are doing meditation. And theta also we have observed, because Vipassana meditation, if you all know that Vipassana meditation, meditators start their meditation with Anapana, or focusing their breath, awareness on breath, then expanding that to almost the whole body during Vipassana. And finally, they end the meditation with a Metta Bhavana. Metta Bhavana is a kind of emotionally enhanced state. So that is associated with a specific theta wave pattern called as theta. And this is associated with mental quiescence and emotional regulation. So you see that how these, like how our consciousness itself is, transforming according to the changes in the properties of the brain network. And also, so that is one aspect we have studied, that is about the power spectral analysis we have done. So now we using the EEG, one can, doing various types of analysis, we can correlate that with the consciousness. So that's the beauty of this kind of study. Say, for example, this is a kind of functional connectivity analysis. We have derived the functional connectivity using various computation, this thing. And this functional connectivity can also be used as a tool to understand your state of consciousness. For example, this is the large connectivity when you are awake, whereas when you are given some anesthesia called as propofol. Propofol is a general anesthesia we use during surgeries, and you see that how the connectivity is reduced. So this kind of, so how we can, how we can utilize this information to understand consciousness. For example, in this case, a participant who had a weaker alpha band networks at baseline were more likely to become unresponsive during sedation. despite registering similar, so they become unresponsive during sedation. So you would have seen that some people are more resistant to sedation. So now we can have some kind of correlation using EEG dynamics and look at the state of consciousness. So this is another tool we are also developing with the help of the same authors, Srivas Chennu. And we have also seen that brain connectivity analysis, what we have observed in this, you see that we have during meditation, we have seen enhanced connectivity. This is the case of alpha again. So this enhanced connectivity definitely is related to, enhanced intellect, cognition, cultivation of higher virtues, wholesome behaviors. So you see that, so during meditation itself, you are entering in a different state of consciousness, and when compared to the novice or even the control subjects. So control subjects, they don't have, or novice, when they are practicing also, the connectivity is not increasing. Whereas here you see that there is a better connectivity and better experience. So now coming to a kind of self, what is the neuroscience of self? That is also a very important question, because this is very important that as our subjective experience emerges out of perception, thoughts and feelings, many of the mental disorders with altered perception, thoughts and feeling could be due to disorders of consciousness. So that means we can also look at mental disorders from the perspective of disorders of consciousness. This is one of the aim of our center actually, how to study mental disorders from the perspective of neural disorders of disorders of consciousness. So now how do we study self? We have various different brain areas in the which are very important for processing different aspects of self. We call, in general, we call this as a DMN, that is default mode network. So it is the default mode network, the areas associated with the default mode is very important, and they are very important for our own existence, because the sense of self connects us from the past to the future. And it is very important to carry out all our day-to-day events, all our, like day-to-day events. So how? So now there are many studies to show that this default mode network, especially, that is very essential for self-referential processing. Medial prefrontal cortical areas, like these medial prefrontal cortical areas, is essential for social understanding of others. Anterior MPF, medial prefrontal cortex and posterior cingulate, making self and other distinctions. Temporoparietal junction to delineate the mental process linked with theory of mind, etc. So now there are many studies to correlate the neural correlates of self itself. So now with the advancement of technology, with the advancement of conceptualization, the neuroscientists are also nearing to understand the neural basis of all these aspects, and definitely that gives us better understanding of sense of self. For example, in the case of meditation, I am again relating, because we are using meditation as a model to understand the evolution of consciousness. So meditation, if you look at, especially those who are having long-term practices, those who are having experience of more than 15 years, this is actually a study from Holsel et al., Lutz et al. So they have observed that when you do meditation for more than 15,000 hours or more than 16 years of meditation experience, they have observed changes in the cortex, the enhanced thickness of some of the areas of the cortex. Not that it is an indiscriminate enhancement of cortical thickness. It is only those areas which are associated with attention control, emotion regulation, awareness. It is changing. And definitely these areas are becoming more highly very active, and these are associated with attention, emotion regulation and awareness. All your cognitive functions are enhanced, and at the same time they regulate the DMN activities. So this is what in many of the meditation studies, people experience a kind of non-duality, or I cannot say at this stage non-duality, at least the dissociation of self. And the dissociation of self, especially during meditation, that is happening because of the reduced DMN activity. And DMN activity is mainly is pertaining to mind wandering, rumination. Mind wandering is very important, but still in patients, the mind wandering will be too much excess, and that leads to rumination, and that leads to negative emotions. So meditation definitely reduces, regulate the DMN activities in such a way that it reduces mind wandering, it reduces negative emotion, and definitely it enhances your positive control. And positive mood and positive attitude. This is also so a trained meditator, he cannot be distracted by using even a loud noise or anything. And what is the reason? Because the brain is so tuned. The brain is so tuned that it helps in sustained, attention processes during meditation. So there are the areas associated with include the executive network, that is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is very important for the sustained, attention during meditation. And even if there is mind wandering, there are areas like your salience network, which include the dorsal anterior cingulate and anterior insula. They detect this mind wandering and make the person to reorient the awareness from the distractors of thought to shift back and to focus on the ongoing process of meditation. So you see that I just wanted to see that the flexibility of the neural network, the resilience of the brain, and the enhanced network flexibility that makes the meditator's brain totally different from that of the normal brain. And this is one example to show that how compassion meditation or any other loving kindness meditation make, foster altruistic behavior. You see that? So we are, when we become compassionate or when we become altruistic, how that is happening? Our consciousness is changing, but how that is happening? There are studies now to show that there are, accompanying, meditation, there are areas like anterior insula is becoming more active, and whereas areas like amygdala, which are regulated, which are associated with negative emotions, are very reducing. So you see that they can reduce, there is a proper emotion regulation happening, and also it enhances it helps to generate various altruistic and compassionate behavior through brain modulation. So definitely when we say that meditation, it helps in self-discovery, self-development, self-regulation. To certain extent now, the neuroscientists are able to understand the neural correlates of self, as well as how that is transformation of self happening from a self-centeredness to selflessness. So these are all possible, but still I wouldn't say that that is consciousness. Maybe philosophers, maybe even thinking that, okay, let anything happen to the brain, but the consciousness is totally different. But still, we are so happy that by looking into or trying to understand consciousness, we are trying to understand the brain, mind, and its capabilities in a greater way. And this is another, as I have been talking about the importance of integration, information integration, and the brain dynamics, that is very important to maintain consciousness. So that means these brain oscillations, various brain oscillations like theta, alpha, gamma, beta oscillations are the gateway to understand consciousness, as far as neuroscientists are concerned. And we have done a small experiment with to understand working memory. So working memory is very important for the maintenance of consciousness. Working memory is the information that we have to hold for a few seconds in the mind to carry out a future job or a future activity. You need to have working memory. See, for example, in your short-term memory, you can even maintain some of our friends, or some of the new phone numbers. How do you keep in our mind? So these are all through working memory mechanism, actually. So we have looked into this working memory dynamics, dynamic brain dynamics during working memory, especially during encoding. That is, they were asked to perform a task. So here, we have provided them a task. So there is something called the encoding the information in the brain. Then they have to perform the same task after a delay. So in the delay period, and also during encoding, how these brain brain dynamics, EEG dynamics occur at different levels. This is what we looked into. And we have observed that among the controls, there is a beautiful dynamics we have observed across these various brain oscillations. Very beautiful dynamics. We have looked at this power spectral dynamics as well as frequency sliding, because power spectral dynamics itself may not tell us in, all details. We have not yet done the functional connectivity analysis. We are doing it, but the frequency sliding also we have observed. That is, in this case, we will look into the peak frequency. For example, in the case of theta alpha, theta, it is a 4 to 8 hertz. The peak frequency usually will be around 6 to 8 hertz. So that we have studied, and we have observed that these are all very important for sustaining the information during the delay period. So here we have observed a very beautiful dynamics across these EEG oscillations. Whereas among the patients, especially in schizophrenia, patients with schizophrenia, it is a disorder of perception and thought, and there are brain anomalies. Definitely, we can expect that they will not be able to perform the task well, even though the task is very simple. We didn't see much of the kind of dynamics what we have observed among the controls. You see that there isn't much difference between the baseline, the encoding, and the delay in most of the cases. We didn't see much of the thing, and they are not able to also perform the task well. So, so this is how. So you see that so now anyway we know that, okay, this, so that now we can think of some kind of neuromodulation, like some application of say for example TMS, that is transcranial magnetic stimulation. You are providing some external stimulation, external modulation of your brain activity. So using some kind of this TMS or some kind of brain modulation, you can modulate the brain activity and bring the dynamics among the patients. So these kind of studies will help us to modulate the brain activity and bring them back to at least to perform their day-to-day life in a proper way. So these are the so far I have been talking about the waking aspects of consciousness and how this importance of integration and differentiation of information. How brain integrate information. I have been discussing. Now during sleep also can be a good window to understand consciousness. And for this, what we have done, actually, we have got a very good, we have been doing sleep studies, polysomnographic studies for the past so many years. And in this case, what we have done, we have just provided some, sound to the subject who are sleeping. So we are just a sound we have provided. The subject is sleeping. We didn't, and this sound is a bearable sound around 60 decibels. So they can tolerate the sound, and they can also, that will not interfere with their sleep. They will be able to sleep. But here, what we have studied is that whether the sound can get integrated into the brain and can lead to, whether can it disturb the sleep, or it can also, it can allow the ongoing sleep process. So this is what we have looked into. And what we have observed, that this sound process automatically brain process this sound, and these are some of the evoked potentials we have studied, like EKC, that is evoked K complexes. Evoked K complexes and sleep ERPs are indicators of high, like high waveform, indicators of very nice sleep proficiency. That means this wave patterns, this we have seen in meditators actually, that this external sound did not affect their sleep quality as well as sleep processes. The meditators had longer EKCs that evoked K complexes and longer sleep ERPs that get integrated into the sleep processes itself, and that doesn't interfere with the sleep. And we have also looked into DMN, because DMN is an area associated with the processing of self-referential processing. So our aim was whether such enhanced, we have observed enhanced activity of the DMN. So such enhanced activity may be an indication of sensory processing. This was our question. We have seen that this enhanced increased DMN activity, especially at the delta and sigma power, is positively correlated with EKCs and ERP. That means it is an indication of better sleep. But at the same time, we have seen that DMN and insula functional connectivity in the theta band. So this insula and DMN are also associated with the processing of self-referential processing. So, whether you will be able to, our question is that whether this is a window for us to study further the consciousness. So this, we have to study these kind of, undertake various studies further. So for example, this is a study from RC et al. Very interesting study. You see that we have looked at the sound and integration of the sound in the sleep processes. Whereas here, what they have done, these are the smokers. So they were actually trying certain conditioning paradigm with the smokers, so that whether they can quit smoking. That was the thing. So these patients were or the participants were allowed to sleep, and during sleep they were unaware. The participants were not told that what they are going to do during sleep, but during sleep the smokers received some kind of putrefied smells during N2. N2 state is a lighter sleep state actually. And during, so this was continued for a week. Even one night sleep, exposure, they were able to quit almost 12%. The subject who received the order treatment during REM sleep reduced their smoking by 12%, and whereas N2 they were reduced by 30% during the following week. So you see that one night exposure during sleep, it's a kind of learning, it's a kind of conditioning, like Pavlovian conditioning. You are conditioning the brain during sleep. That means the participants are not aware, but still you can condition your brain and bring modulation of your behaviors. So these are all these studies definitely take us to different realms of the capacity of the brain and mind. And we continued our studies. We were very much interested to understand whether lucid dreaming. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Okay. So this is a lucid dreaming. So what is the difference between dreaming and lucid dreaming? During REM sleep state, we dream a lot. All of you know it. But some we will be able to recollect these dreams during when you wake up. That is because during the early morning period, we dream, our REM sleep state will be more actually. And during that period, if you dream, definitely we will be able to recollect, because usually we get up from the REM sleep state, because REM sleep, the electrophysiological characteristic of REM and wake is almost similar. So it is easy for us to transition from REM sleep to wake state, and we will be able to recollect what kind of dreams we are having. Whereas during lucid dreaming is totally different, because dreaming, REM sleep, we will be dreaming across the sleep actually, different states of sleep. And if we wake the person up during that particular period of dreaming, we will be able to, they will be able to recollect everything. Whereas during lucid dreaming, you are quite aware, because your frontal areas, all the prefrontal cortical regions are highly active. Your central executive network is highly active. That means you are in a state to, to change, to modulate your dreams. So you can influence your dream if you are in a lucid state. So this is what we have studied, and we have used a certain, cognitive training among the participants, and we were able to study this, the lucid dreaming among the participants. And lucid dreaming, what we have observed is, we have observed increased gamma activity. And increased gamma activity is very important for binding of information. So that means they were really highly conscious, and they were able to bind all this information, whatever, and they were able to even modulate the dreams. So now you see that through this advancement, we are beginning to understand various areas, like where, see, for example, this kind of dreaming studies, lucid dream, now we can use it as a window for as an intervention technique in areas, in conditions like PTSD, where people are, like any traumatic, post-traumatic stressful events. They will be highly vigilant. They will not have much sleep. So such people, we will be able to now train them and use these kind of approaches as an intervention method, and also as approach to understand consciousness. We are also into understanding the neurophysiology and phenomenology of dreaming during the normal sleep state. So here, this is a kind of multiple awakening paradigm we have used. We are, we have provided, we just wake them up at different states of sleep during sleep, and we ask them if they are into dream. Dream. Definitely,
Hello.
they will tell that they are into dream, and then, hello.
No, madam,
Hello?
it's okay. It's okay, madam. You continue, sir.
Okay. Because I'm little worried about my connectivity. That is why I'm so sensitive, when you are calling. So here, so we have also studied this dream pattern, and in addition to the normal natural dreams, we have also provided, like we have trained them, some cognitive training just before sleep. And during sleep, we have also provided some stimuli related to dreams, just to activate what they have been, trained before sleep. And we have observed that almost, like we could 11 these kind of interventions, like we could influence their dream. 11.3% of the people have reported the cognitive training what they had just before sleep. So that means this also can be used as an intervention method, to manipulate the brain activity, and to transform. Say, for example, if the people with rumination, people with negative emotions, we can make them bring them back to positive emotions using these kind of approaches. So these are the studies what usually we are looking into. And one more thing I just wanted to tell you, that what we have observed among the normal, these are all youngsters we have used, they were our participants, and we have observed that the dream decoding when we have done, many of them, see, almost 13% are negative dreams. You see that NREM 3 stage we won't get, so it is not a problem. But NREM 2, the lighter sleep state also you can dream, and almost 13%. Even here in REM sleep state also, like there are a lot of negativity. So this could be a window to come up, to just to release all your negative emotions. So dreams are, are helpful even to relieve your negative emotions. So that could be one reason what we feel that there are, they are having a lot of negative emotions. And even in the meditators, we discuss, and they say that during meditation, especially initial part of their meditation, a lot of, they come up with a lot of sankharas, and that comes out as negative emotions. So these could be, something related to that actually. And now this is another very important and very interesting for the neuroscientist. See, for example, this is one study we have to also look into: content-free awareness, e.g. fMRI correlates of consciousness as such in an expert meditator. Just imagine, we talk about non-duality of consciousness, and that can be achieved through meditation. So what is the neural correlate of non-duality? And in this is a very specific, it is only, done with one practitioner, but still having a lot of, so many years of more than 50 years, 50,000 hours of meditation practice. And they have conducted this study in a very controlled situation. And they have observed that during rest, he was able to perceive the mental content and bodily awareness and experience at the time of experience before meditation. But during meditation, totally, like there is no awareness of any mental content or sensory event, experience of self, time, space. And they have looked at the neural correlates, and it is very interesting to see that content-free awareness is associated with minimal neural correlates of consciousness. So there is a decreased activity of the alpha, but increased theta power, and reduced alpha power increase, and increased this is a dorsal attention network with reduced DMN. So you see that there is a state with increased DAN, that is attention network, increased theta power with reduced DMN and reduced alpha power can be an indication of a kind of non-dual consciousness. So by looking at, we will be able to, by studying EEG dynamics or brain and mind dynamics, we are in a position to study the evolution of consciousness from mind wandering to non-duality. So I think I try to tell in this my talk, especially the ability of the brain to integrate information and how that information is very useful or to mediate consciousness. So that is what I try to give you in this lecture. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Kutty, for your very detailed presentation of the working of the brain in relation to consciousness, the meditative state of the mind, and so on and so forth. Your research area is so different from what we generally do in philosophy that much of that you have said looks unintelligible to us. But even then, the level of depth at which you are working is really very amazing, and I hope, as your quotation from Francis Crick suggests, that unless we study the brain, even our understanding of the universe will not be possible. So in a sense, brain is the most vital organ of the human being, and that is also related to much that is happening around us in the universe. But the point which philosophers are worried is, you have referred in the beginning to Chalmers, which he calls the hard problem of consciousness. How does the brain activity transform itself into a conscious experience, subjective experience? Now that remains the most challenging question for the philosophers and also perhaps for the neuroscientists. You have tried to show the correlation between the brain and consciousness, and you have used very technical terms which I myself don't understand, but there is something called neurological correlates of our conscious activities. So if we find the correlates, that will neurological or neural correlates, that will really demystify the mystery around consciousness. Possibly there is a physical connection between the two. If that would not have been the case, we do not know how consciousness would have come into existence at all. How we could be conscious from the very beginning of our birth. So that shows that the brain is so magnificently designed by nature that it is functioning in so deep ways that it takes 1,000 years for human beings to understand it. Only in the 21st century you have arrived at such a magnificent story of the brain. But we do not know what will be the story of the brain after 5 centuries, because the human knowledge is increasing. And the deeper side of reality, I think it will not be difficult to say. It will not be wrong to say that perhaps much of the mystery of the creation, including the human brain, is yet to be decoded. But anyway, madam, thank you very much for this excellent presentation. Our participants will have queries. So please address them. May I request all our participants to raise their queries, doubts. Even if you don't understand, raise a question. That will be part of your job. Try to understand, even if something is not very much intelligible. So, okay, participants, come on. Put your questions directly to madam or write in your chat box.
Actually, Dr. Pradhan, what you said is absolutely correct. We are also agreeing with that. You know, here we try to understand the individual level in, you know, in an individual, how the consciousness, you know, like how we are able to decipher actually. Whereas when we talk about the entire consciousness, we are all embedded in that. You know, so as you said, that physical connection between these two, you know, we should be able to understand.
Chairperson, sir, if you allow, then I would like to. Yeah,
Please.
there is one participant. Yeah, Minki. Yeah, please.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good
I
evening.
really like your presentation. Just in more, I got some, like, I just have two questions that I want to ask you because I don't know much about this neuroscientist concept. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
you are audible.
Okay. Ma'am, I just want to ask, like, when you are talking about the meditation, how the brain and the consciousness evolution and all these things, I just want to ask about, what about, did you ever get a chance to research on the person who are in coma state or person who are fainted? What about their consciousness or brain function and all this? And second is the thing about that, these days, recently I heard, like, in the meditation, some person who do a strong meditation and some person who do a daily routine doing a meditation, when he passed away, when a monk or someone passed away, even he is physically dead, but there's a poor situation that he's still under the meditation state, like trance meditation state or something, which normally they use a term as a tuktam. I don't know which is they use. So did you ever get a chance to do research on those monks who, after even at a physical death, they are doing meditation and all this? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So coma state, I have already showed one figure in the, you know, first beginning. Coma, definitely, now we are in a better state to understand coma because now we have various measures to assess the brain activity. You know, so whether it is a functional connectivity analysis we are looking into or the brain activity as such we are looking into, you know, in coma, definitely, even that I have showed you that perturbation complexity index. So there are certain levels under which if you know, the patient can be in different levels of coma also. You know, comatic state, we have a Glasgow scale index to assess their coma scale. So, but using various brain connectivity studies, now we will know that which patient can come out of that coma using these kind of brain measures. So that way, brain measures now are intervention tools for us to understand more about their conscious levels, especially the patient in different states of coma. So that way, these are very useful. And there are studies also going on, you know, to assess their coma state. So that is okay. Whereas here, now the second question what you have asked is the Tukdam. Tukdam, they say that there is no proof. We also see, we have some association with Dr. Richard Davidson, Wisconsin University Center for Healthy Minds. He is a close associative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So they are doing studies on Tukdam, and they asked us also to be a part of that. But you know, from a very realistic point of view, if you look at we haven't, we say that the meditators enter into a kind of surya state, but we are still not in a position to assess such higher states of consciousness. But otherwise, what we have observed is they're all putrefaction, like processes are all delayed. That is the body putrefaction processes are delayed. That is one thing we have observed. But otherwise, as far as consciousness is concerned, he is dead, and we are not in a position to tell anything regarding whether they have entered into Tugdam or Tudya state. We may have to also understand more about Tugdam. We may have to study those phenomena well. So there are lacunas in us as well as, in our technology. That we should be, maybe as Dr. Pradhan said, maybe after 5 decades, all this will be possible. I have completed.
Yes,
Madam,
Hello.
I have a query that what is memory, and can we have the memory of past life?
Past life memory. See, brain, I feel, is an enigma actually. Even, I talked within the normal functioning of brain. I didn't talk anything about the extraordinary capabilities of brain. But, it's an enigma. I will not be able to tell you. See, for example, we have come up with the patients having stroke. When a patient with stroke, like hemispheric neglect, and all, I have already talked. Some people with stroke, their other faculties come up. See, for example, one bus conductor, he was, after stroke, he has become a good painter, artist. So how the artistic talents has come out, following one thing. So there are a lot of things which we don't know. We still don't know anything about our brain. So still mind, brain, everything is an enigma. We maybe within our physical matter, at least we are in a position to correlate our functioning with our brain. But definitely brain and mind is something beyond that. In that concept, in that perspective, I can say that it is possible that you will be able to, because we tell about the dual personality kind of people having dual personalities. See, some people who are who can transform to another personality, and that personality can talk about the previous life history and other things. So how that is possible? So these are all enigma, very questions, big questions. We human beings are still need to have further understanding, further, what you say, that evolution. Even as Sri Aurobindo said, we have to evolve much more to understand these aspects well. So we are still in the primitive aspects of evolution, I could say.
Many realized saints in India, even we can find out the writings of Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa and the Swami Vivekananda. They have a very, profound affirmation about their experiences in the meditative state, and they said that, even Vivekananda said that if you really want to see God, I can see God like you, like him, like anyone else.
Correct.
Believe,
That's what they're all evolved.
and to know and to believe. Yes.
They're all evolved personalities. So their evolution.
I think, sir, there is some kind of connectivity issue. Nonglen, can you hear me?
Yes, madam got disconnected. Maybe she'll
Yeah,
join in
yes, yes.
again.
Yeah. I hope she will join again.